Cisco Unified Communications Manager version 10 has a new feature that I'm going to demonstrate that allows the translation pattern to now use the originator's calling search base. This feature gives the admin more granularity when creating the route plan, and it can make things a lot simpler. To demonstrate this, I have an internal user's phone that has 4-digit directory number. However, outside PSTN callers are going to be dialing 10 digits to reach this phone. So I'm going to have 10 digits coming in, and I need to turn that into 4 digits in order to continue the call. To accomplish this, I'm going to create a translation pattern that will look for these 10 digits and modify them to 4. Now, in the past, I would need 2 sets of permissions. One that would allow the trunk permission to use this translation pattern, and then another set of permissions that would allow the translation pattern permission to continue the call to the end user's directory number. So I'll demonstrate that. I'm going to create a partition for the translation pattern. I already have one partition placed on the internal user's directory number. So I have one partition called internal here, and another partition called xform pattern that I'm going to place on the translation pattern. So right away I need 2 different translation patterns, and that's going to require 2 calling search bases. One for the gateway to use the translation pattern, and another for the translation pattern to be able to forward the call to the end user's directory number. Now in the past, after creating both of these partitions and calling search bases, I have to be careful to remember which is which when I'm applying these. So under inbound calls, I'm going to make sure that the trunk has permission to call the transform pattern. And then I would have to give the translation pattern permission to continue the call to the 4-digit extension. Now I'll demonstrate an outside caller trying to reach our internal user, dialing 10 digits. So we see these 10 digits were presented to the trunk. The trunk was able to pass it to the translation pattern. The translation pattern was able to then pass it to the phone. Let me show you how to make that a lot simpler. I'm going to remove the partitions. I'm going to remove the calling search space on the translation pattern. I'm going to remove the calling search space on the trunk. And I'm going to make that a lot easier. Now I'm going to create one calling search space and I'll simply call that internal, and I'll give it the internal partition. Maybe I'll name this internal CSS and give it a good description so that it's not exactly the same. Trunk to both translation and phone. So one calling search space, one partition. We already know that the trunk has permission to call the phone. However, the 10 needs to be turned into 4 before that will work. So I'm going to give the translation pattern the internal partition. I'm going to check use Originator's calling search space. In both the translation pattern and the end user's phone, both have internal. The trunk will have a calling search space that has access to internal. And now that we can use that calling search space throughout the entire duration of the call, we're done. Let's try the call again. Success. You can also see that under the route plan report, we gave the trunk permission to use both translation pattern and directory number. On the translation pattern, I checked use Originator's calling search space. So in this video, I demonstrated how with Unified Communications Manager version 10, the translation pattern can now use the Originator's calling search space. And I hope I demonstrated how that can help simplify dial plan administration.